There is a desolate highway that stretches around 50 miles between the cities of Houston and Galveston, Texas. Somewhere around midway through this drive, you'll find a small town called League City, Texas, which is about a mile off Interstate 45. This is where the 25-acre patch of land that borders the Calder oil field sits that is known as the Texas Killing Fields. Since the 1970s, over 30 young women have been found dead there. Many are simply carried out and laid out in the fields and aren't even hidden. Many call this stretch of highway, the Highway of Hell, due to the brutality and dark nature of many of the killings. The first victim found was Collette Wilson. She was a beautiful 13-year-old girl with black hair and blue eyes. June 17, 1971. She played a band concert at her local school and her teacher was said to have driven several of the children home. The teacher was supposed to meet her mother at the intersection of Highway 6 and County Road 95. Colette's mother Claire was running just a few minutes late, and instead of waiting, the instructor dropped Collette off on the side of the road to wait for her mother. This may seem insane to folks now, but in those days, people often hitchhiked without even thinking about it, and there was no ID channel or true crime podcast to scare the fear into us. Someone doing what was about to be done just wasn't something that was thought about in those days. Claire arrived in less than 5 minutes after Collette was dropped off, yet she was nowhere to be found. Collette simply vanished into thin air. Sadly, her young body would be found 5 months later, dumped near Addicks Reservoir, dead from a single gunshot wound to the head. Just a couple of weeks after Collette vanished, another young 14-year-old teenager named Brenda Jones disappeared on the 1st of July while on her way, walking to visit a sick relative at Galveston General Hospital, which is right off of Interstate 45. Her body would be found soon after floating in the Galveston Bay, but it was no accident. Her body was found with a bullet in the back of her head. The next couple of months went by fairly quiet. It wouldn't last though. 19-year-old Gloria Gonzalez vanished from her home in Houston, just a couple of days before Halloween. Her body would soon be found just a few feet from where the first known victim, Collette Wilson, was found. There was no doubt anymore. There was an active serial killer in the area and no one had a clue who it was. 12-year-old Allison Craven, 15-year-old Debbie Ackerman and Maria Johnson, who was also 15, were all found in the same general area, with their hands and feet tied and with bullet holes to the back of their heads. Whoever this monster was, he had to be caught and fast. The lives of the young women of Texas depended on it. The sickening crimes against the young women and children wouldn't stop though. They continued all throughout the 70s with countless bodies being found. The murders would go unsolved for quite some time, with a few suspects being investigated. One was a man named Michael Lloyd Self, who was convicted of killing a young girl near there named Sharon Shaw. A lot of the people who followed the case claim that he was convicted on weak, circumstantial evidence. Was he guilty? Who knows? Another suspect was a man named Edward Harold Bell, who was an interesting character indeed. He admitted to murdering 11 young women in Galveston County in 1971, but there was absolutely no evidence of him ever doing so. Further doubt came when he claimed that he was part of a secret government brainwashing program that had programmed him to kill. Yeah, okay. Sure. The 80s started off with more victims being found. 12-year-old Brooks Bracewelle and 14-year-old Georgia GEER had both vanished when they were visiting a local store. Another 23-year-old woman named Hyde Villarreal Faye would vanish from that same store on October the 10th of 1983. Her body was discovered when a nearby dog dug up the body and carried her skull over and dropped it next to a nearby toddler. Countless more young women would all be found in the general vicinity of the Texas Killing Fields. All would either be found severely beaten, strangled, found, bound, or a combination of all of the above. Whoever was doing it, there was no punishment that could be handed out that would be too severe. More killings and disappearances would continue, including a young girl named Laura Miller, who vanished from the same convenience store that 3 of the other victims had vanished from. Laura, who had been using the payphone, disappeared on September 10th of 1984. Tim Miller, the young girl's father, became enraged at the lack of progress from law enforcement. He began his own investigation, which led him to a local man named Robert Abel. Abel was another interesting suspect. A highly intelligent man who had even worked for NASA and had been a huge part of developing the Saturn rocket. According to Miller, he suspected Abel because he had owned land all around the area where the bodies were being found, and the fact that he had talked to some of his friends and relatives and had heard that he had a very dark, violent side. Detectives and FBI were able to profile Abel as a serial sexual offender. They even said he had many additional traits often present in serial killers. It wasn't long before the entire area was thinking the same thing. Word got out about how he had even beat his horses and animals with iron pipes when he would become angry. No matter how bad his reputation became, not a trace of evidence was ever found in any way to tie him to the murders. They searched his home, his property, and no matter how hard they dug, not a single thread of evidence was found. His reputation locally caused him such distress that in July of 2005, he drove his golf cart onto the nearby train tracks and waited for the next train. He died instantly. Miller would later claim that a Clyde Edwin Hedrick, already in prison for manslaughter in another case, was the actual killer, but no proof was ever found. Tim Miller would later start putting up crosses where each victim would be found. The murders would not stop though. On August 17th of 1997, a pickup belonging to 17-year-old Jessica CAIN was found on the side of I-45. Her remains have never been found. Cases still continue to pile up. More and more young women have vanished from that small patch of land than almost anywhere else in the United States. If you happen to be driving through Texas, or anywhere else for that matter, hold your children close. Don't take your eyes off of them. Start teaching them self-defense at a very early age. Teach them to be able to protect themselves the best that they can and to never ever go anywhere alone. Whoever was responsible for all of the murders was never caught and could still be out there free to this day. What do you all think? Would you ever consider visiting the Texas killing fields? It would probably be a little too creepy for me, but if you've ever been there, we'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Also, help out our channel by subscribing and giving our video a huge thumbs up. Merch below. Till next time, a huge thank you to everyone who enjoys our videos. See you next time.